hit Jasmine straight on, soaking her 8-month pregnant body. The entire Riverside restaurant froze. 47 diners stopped mid-bite, forks hovered in the air, and the background music seemed to vanish. Derek, the 28-year-old waiter responsible for the act, didn't even bother to hide his smirk. "Oops, my bad," he said with false sweetness. "Maybe you should have stayed home instead of pretending you can afford this place." Jasmine, 31, had only wanted to celebrate her birthday while waiting for her husband, delayed by a work meeting. For 25 minutes, Derek had taunted her, slow service, sarcastic remarks, and looks filled with disdain. Cold water ran down her hair and dress, forming puddles at her feet. Inside her, the baby moved almost as if her unborn daughter could sense her mother's humiliation. "Need a hand cleaning that up?" Derek said loudly so everyone could hear. "Or maybe a loan to pay your bill." But something unexpected happened. Jasmine didn't cry. She didn't scream. She took a deep breath, and her eyes, still glistening with tears, hardened into something calm, steady, and unshakable. "Are you sure you want to do this?" she asked quietly. The confidence in her voice made Derek instinctively step back. He laughed awkwardly and turned to a coworker. "Did you hear that, Jason? She's threatening me now." Then, puffing up his chest, he added, "This restaurant serves real customers, lady, people who actually belong here." Without saying another word, Jasmine opened her purse, pulled out her wallet, and placed 4 crisp $50 bills on the table. "For the water I didn't order," she said evenly, "and for your tip. You clearly need it more than I do." The waiter blinked, startled. He'd expected tears, anger, or begging, anything but composure. "Are you going to move?" Jasmine said softly. "Or do I have to walk through you?" She rose with quiet dignity, and several customers looked away, ashamed for having witnessed it without stepping in. That's when Derek made his second bigger mistake. "You can go," he sneered, "and don't come back. People like you never belong here anyway." Jasmine stopped at the door, turned once, and gave him a calm, pitying look. "You really should have done your homework first," she said, and walked out. Inside, Derek bragged to his co-workers, waving the $200 like a trophy. "Finally put someone in their place," he said proudly, ignoring the disgusted stares of Jason and the assistant manager. Outside, Jasmine leaned against the brick wall, shaking not from the cold, but from anger and resolve. She took out her phone and sent a short message. "I need you now. Riverside Restaurant." The reply came within seconds. "On my way. 8 minutes." In the dark reflection of a nearby window, Jasmine saw herself a drenched, pregnant woman who had just been humiliated because of her skin color. What Derek couldn't see was that behind that reflection stood a woman whose husband was far from ordinary. Nathan Cruz wasn't just her husband. He was a retired Navy SEAL captain with 15 years of decorated service, 3 medals of honor, and deep connections across the country. He now ran one of the largest private security firms on the East Coast, serving clients from government agencies to global corporations. And within 48 hours, Derek would learn exactly what that meant. But Derek would only discover that truth when it was far too late. 8 minutes after Jasmine's message, a black SUV rolled to a stop in front of the Riverside restaurant. A tall man stepped out, his movements sharp and deliberate, the kind that come from years of discipline and training. Nathan Cruz, 36, carried an aura that made even innocent people uneasy. The moment he saw Jasmine standing there, soaked and trembling, something in his expression shifted. His eyes went cold. "What happened?" he asked quietly, wrapping his coat around her shoulders. Jasmine's gaze turned toward the restaurant. "Someone in there needs to learn what respect means." Nathan's jaw tightened. "Name?" "Derek, waiter, blonde hair, tattoo on his left arm." Nathan nodded once, then took out his phone. "Tony, I need a favor," he said, his voice calm but lethal. "Keep it discreet. I want everything. Start tonight." He ended the call and looked back at the restaurant with the same focus he once had before missions. Inside, Derek was laughing with coworkers, proud of what he thought was a small victory. He had no idea that his life was about to unravel in ways he couldn't begin to imagine. Because Nathan Cruz didn't believe in loud revenge. He believed in precision, quiet, thorough, and impossible to trace. And Jasmine wasn't just a Navy SEAL's wife. She was the head of human resources for one of the country's largest hotel chains, a company that, coincidentally, had been negotiating to buy Riverside Restaurant just 3 weeks earlier. Derek had just humiliated the one person who could have secured his future. In the warmth of the SUV, Jasmine closed her eyes as her baby kicked softly. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," she whispered. "Mommy promises you'll grow up in a world where people like this are held accountable." Nathan said nothing, but his grip on her hand tightened. Both of them understood what was coming. It wouldn't be dramatic or violent. It would be the slow dismantling of Derek's entire world. If you've ever felt that cold, steady anger that injustice leaves behind, then you'll want to hear what happened next. Because in the days that followed, Derek was about to learn the price of underestimating the wrong woman. As Jasmine watched the restaurant through the tinted window, Nathan spoke on the phone in a low, controlled tone, giving orders to people whose names she preferred not to know. "I want everything about him on my desk by 6 a.m., Nathan said. "Work history, debts, social circle, every detail." When the call ended, he turned to Jasmine. "Let's go home. You need to rest." But Jasmine shook her head. Her voice came out stronger than she expected. "No, Nathan, this isn't just about me. It's about our daughter, and every person who's ever been made to feel small because of who they are." Nathan recognized that fire in her eyes. It was the same one he'd seen years ago, when she worked 3 jobs to put herself through college, when she confronted a corrupt boss and ended his career. Jasmine didn't just endure humiliation, she transformed it into strength. And Derek, counting his $200 trophy behind the counter, had no clue that the woman he mocked had spent the last 5 years investigating workplace discrimination, documenting it, exposing it, and ending the careers of people exactly like him. She knew how to gather evidence, how to turn isolated acts into patterns of misconduct, and she was about to use every ounce of that expertise against Riverside Restaurant. 3 days later, Derek's week felt ordinary. A few rude customers, average tips, and the same misplaced pride he carried since that night. He had told the story a dozen times, each version making him sound braver, tougher. "Man, you should have seen her face when I tossed the water," he bragged to his friend Tyler over beers. "Thought she could walk in here acting all high and mighty. I showed her where she really belonged." Tyler hesitated. "I don't know, man. Throwing water at a pregnant woman? That's pretty low." Derek just laughed, still unaware that the real storm had already started. "Oh, come on," Derek scoffed, waving off his friend's concern. "She probably wasn't even really pregnant, just acting for attention." He ordered another beer, completely unaware that, at that very moment, 3 investigators were gathering detailed reports about every aspect of his life. Because what Derek didn't know was that this wasn't his first offense, it was simply the one that had gone too far. The morning after the incident, Nathan sat in his office as Tony, his private investigator, slid a thick 47-page dossier across the desk. "There's more," Tony said grimly, spreading several photographs. 3 formal complaints against him in the last 18 months, all from Black or Latino customers, all ignored by management. Nathan flipped through the pages, his jaw tightening with every line. There it was in black and white. An elderly woman burned by spilled hot soup. A gay couple served spoiled food. A teenager accused of stealing, even though he was holding his receipt. "Did management know?" Nathan asked quietly. "Assistant manager Amanda tried to report it twice," Tony said. "She was shut down by the general manager, a man named Robert Chun. Derek's a distant cousin of the owner." Nathan's mouth curved into a cold smile. Anyone who'd served with him in the SEALs would have recognized that expression instantly, the look of a man who had just identified the full chain of command he intended to dismantle. That afternoon, Jasmine walked into Nathan's office carrying a folder that made his eyes light up. "I've got something," she said, "a formal audit proposal." Nathan looked at her, intrigued. "I contacted Riverside Holdings, the corporation that owns the restaurant, offered my services as an external consultant specializing in customer service optimization. They loved the idea, especially when I mentioned compliance and pre-action reviews." He raised an eyebrow. "They don't know who you are? Why would they?" Jasmine smiled faintly. "I use my maiden name for work, Jasmine Williams. They have no idea the consultant they just hired is the same woman their favorite waiter humiliated in front of 50 people. It was the first real smile Nathan had seen from her in days, and it was razor sharp. Friday morning, the staff meeting at Riverside began with tension thick enough to cut. "Everyone, listen up," said General Manager Robert Chun, his voice tight. "An external consultant will be here next week to observe our service and conduct interviews. It's standard procedure, nothing to worry about." "Observe us," Derek muttered. "Like, watching while we work?" "Exactly," Robert replied. "And I expect professionalism from everyone. The company is taking this very seriously." Amanda exchanged a quick look with Jason, the other waiter. They both knew exactly why this audit was happening, though Derek was still too arrogant to realize it. Meanwhile, Nathan was pursuing his own investigation. Over dinner that night, he shared what he'd found. "Robert Chun isn't just careless," Nathan said. "He's part of the problem. 3 labor lawsuits in the last 5 years, all from employees who tried to report discrimination and got fired for it. He protects Derek because it keeps the family happy and the paperwork quiet." Jasmine stroked her stomach, feeling the baby move. "Our daughter is coming into a world where people like Derek and Robert think they can get away with anything." "Not if she grows up seeing you prove them wrong," Nathan said softly, kissing her forehead. By Monday, Derek was in a foul mood. The restaurant was packed for the business lunch rush, and he was snapping at coworkers. At table 6, a black customer politely asked to have her steak cooked a little longer. Derek rolled his eyes. "Are you sure the meat's the problem?" he said under his breath, but loud enough for her to hear. "I can bring the menu back if you don't know what you ordered." The woman smiled gently. "No need. Just make it well done. Please." Derek stormed off, not realizing that the customer was Jasmine, wearing a short wig, glasses, and a calm smile. Inside her purse, a small recorder was already running. For the next 3 hours, she quietly documented everything. Every table he served, every tone of voice, every condescending smirk. The pattern was undeniable. Polite, well-dressed white guests got warmth, fast service, and cheerful recommendations. Customers of color got impatience, sarcasm, and deliberate neglect. And every minute of it was being captured on audio, in notes, and soon in reports that would leave Riverside Restaurant nowhere to hide. Black and Latino customers received curt replies, slow service, or in some cases were ignored entirely. Jasmine recorded everything. Every glance, every tone, every delay. She timed response intervals, photographed Derek's expressions, and logged each interaction with quiet precision. After nearly 3 hours of silent observation, Derek finally noticed that the woman at table 6 was taking notes on a tablet. A faint unease stirred in his stomach. He forced a smile and approached. "Everything all right with your meal now?" he asked. Jasmine looked up at him over her sunglasses. For the briefest moment, he felt like he'd seen her somewhere before, but the thought slipped away as quickly as it came. "Perfect," she said calmly, leaving a tip of exactly $2 on an $80 bill. Derek glared after her. He understood the message, and it stung. That night, while he complained to Tyler about the ungrateful customer who had left a pathetic tip, Jasmine sat at home surrounded by folders, her laptop glowing softly. On the screen were 47 pages of reports, timestamps, and comparison charts, discrete videos, clear audio, statistical proof of how Derek treated people differently based on appearance. "It's perfect," she said, her eyes fierce with controlled satisfaction. "He hasn't changed a thing, even with an audit happening. He's so sure he's untouchable." Nathan studied the evidence, pride and concern crossing his face. "Jasmine, once you file this, there's no going back. His entire life will collapse." "Maybe then," Jasmine said quietly, "he'll understand what it felt like to have ice water thrown on me while strangers laughed." She wasn't wrong, but Nathan knew her well enough to realize this was about more than revenge. It was about accountability, about making sure others like Derek learned that there are limits. By Wednesday morning, an email appeared in Derek's inbox. From corporate HR subject, informal feedback meeting, Friday, 2 p.m. Robert Chun, the general manager, reassured him. "It's just routine," he said, patting Derek's back. They'll ask about your job, maybe your experience with customers. Standard procedure, don't worry about it. Derek grinned. After all, he was family. Family always protected family. What he didn't know was that, at that exact moment, Jasmine was in a conference room at corporate headquarters, presenting her evidence to a team of company lawyers. Not just a few isolated cases, but a clear systemic pattern of discrimination. She showed them data, names, dates, audio, photographs, and as the lawyers reviewed every detail, one thing became obvious. This was no small problem. It was a corporate liability waiting to explode. Riverside Holdings wasn't afraid of Derek's family connections. They were afraid of a lawsuit that could cost them millions. But there was something neither Jasmine nor Nathan could have predicted. While Derek slept soundly, still convinced of his invincibility, Amanda, the assistant manager, finally decided she'd had enough. She opened her laptop, navigated to a hidden folder she'd been building for years, and attached dozens of files, copies of complaints, ignored reports, internal messages, and HR forms that went missing under Robert Chun's supervision. Her email subject line read, "Pattern of systematic discrimination at Riverside. Supporting evidence attached." Within hours, her message joined Jasmine's report at corporate headquarters. The justice heading Derek's way wasn't coming from one direction. It was coming from everywhere. Like an avalanche he had built himself, one careless act at a time. And when it finally fell, it would teach him the lesson every arrogant person learns too late. It doesn't matter who protects you. If you create enough enemies, one day they'll all arrive at once. Friday came. Derek woke up calm, almost excited. Just a quick feedback chat, he told himself. He served breakfast with his usual arrogance, flashing smiles at wealthy customers and barely acknowledging anyone else. At 1:45 p.m., Robert knocked on the staff door. "They're ready for you, Derek. Just relax, smile, and answer whatever they ask. Your family." "Of course," Derek replied confidently. What he didn't realize was that, a few rooms away, 3 corporate attorneys sat reviewing a stack of evidence now, over 100 pages long. Videos, audio clips, precise timestamps, charts comparing service patterns between white and non-white customers. Patricia Monroe, the company's lead counsel, flipped through the documents, her expression darkening. "This isn't a case of one bad employee," she said. "This is a culture of discrimination, one protected by management itself." "If this reaches the media," Patricia Monroe said, tapping the folder in front of her, "we're looking at a potential class action lawsuit worth tens of millions." Nathan sat at the far end of the table, not as a furious husband, but as a corporate security consultant. His presence was perfectly legitimate. His influence, however, was devastating. "Do we have more?" Patricia asked. Nathan nodded and slid a tablet across the polished surface. "Assistant Manager Amanda Fisher," he said. "She's documented 3 years of ignored complaints, and she's ready to testify." It had been Tony, Nathan's investigator, who discovered Amanda's hidden archive. After a discreet conversation and an assurance of legal protection, Amanda finally found the courage to do what she had wanted to do for years: tell the truth. At exactly 2 p.m., Derek walked into the conference room wearing his usual smirk. It vanished instantly when he saw the faces waiting for him. 3 lawyers, 2 corporate executives, and, to his disbelief, Amanda seated beside them. "Mr. Morrison," Patricia said calmly, gesturing to a chair, "please sit down." "I thought this was just a routine feedback chat," Derek said uncertainly. "Change of plans." Patricia opened her laptop. "We're going to watch some videos." The first clip showed Derek cheerfully serving a table of well-dressed businessmen. The second showed him ignoring a black family for precisely 18 recorded minutes. The third froze Derek in place, the footage of him throwing water at a pregnant woman. Derek's blood turned to ice. "I can explain." "Can you?" Patricia interrupted, pausing the video on the exact frame where his cruel smile lingered as water streamed down Jasmine's belly. "Please, explain this." At the far end of the table, General Manager Robert Chun sat pale and speechless. His family connections suddenly meant nothing. I was provoked," Derek stammered, but Amanda's voice cut through his excuses. "For 3 years," she said steadily, I filed 17 separate reports about Derek's behavior. All were dismissed by Mr. Chun. Derek turned toward her, stunned, but Patricia was already laying more papers in front of him. Official complaints, witness statements, time logs, and cold statistical data proving that when Derek worked, non-white customers received 40% less attention than others. Riverside Holdings, Patricia said, her tone precise and final, has a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination. Effective immediately, you are terminated. And Mr. Chun, you as well. Robert stood abruptly, face red. You can't do that. I know the owner. Patricia didn't even look up. The owner has authorized us to clean house. Congratulations. You've turned one of our most profitable restaurants into a public relations disaster. Derek left the room in silence, dazed. In 20 minutes, his entire world had collapsed. He still had no idea that the woman he'd humiliated wasn't just another customer. She was the one who had orchestrated every step of his downfall. And this was only the beginning. As Derek packed his things into a cardboard box, Nathan made quiet phone calls to industry contacts, hospitality managers, and client partners. Within hours, Derek's name was flagged on every hiring list in the city. No reputable restaurant would ever bring him on again. Jasmine had promised a lesson in respect. And when a human resources professional sets out to end your career, she doesn't leave a trace behind. Derek believed losing his job was rock bottom. He was wrong. The fall had only just begun. That weekend, he barely slept. By Monday morning, he was frantically sending out resumes when his phone buzzed with a new email. Subject, civil notice. Cruz versus Morrison and Riverside Holdings. He frowned, then opened the attached PDF and froze. There she was, the woman from the restaurant, the pregnant woman, the one he drenched with water. Plaintiff, Jasmine Williams Cruz. His stomach twisted. Cruz? The name hit him like a blow. He opened a browser and typed Nathan Cruz, Jasmine Cruz. The first image that appeared made him dizzy. A photo from a charity gala. Nathan Cruz, CEO of Cruz Security Solutions, decorated former Navy SEAL captain, standing beside his wife Jasmine Williams Cruz, HR Director of Starlight Hotels and Resorts. Jasmine wasn't just the wife of a veteran. She was an executive, and her company was in final negotiations to acquire the Riverside restaurant chain. Before he could process it, his phone rang. An unknown number. Mr. Morrison, came the cool professional voice. This is Patricia Monroe, legal counsel for Mrs. Cruz. Derek's mouth went dry. Yes. I'm calling to inform you that we have compiled evidence of a 3-year pattern of discriminatory conduct. 23 videos, 47 audio recordings, 19 witness statements. He felt the air leave his lungs. In addition to a $2.3 million civil claim for emotional distress, she continued, we've also filed a complaint with the Department of Civil Rights. You are now under federal investigation. I didn't know who she was, Derek whispered. Patricia's tone was ice. Exactly, Mr. Morrison. The problem isn't who she was. It's how you treated her because of who you thought she was. Derek hung up, his hands trembling. His phone buzzed again and again, notifications flooding in. Someone had leaked the video. 8.7 million views. His face, his name. Everywhere. Comments called him a monster, a coward. Strangers wrote threats. His photo appeared on news sites, his social media pages filled with rage and disgust. He had become the symbol of everything he once dismissed as no big deal. 3 days later, Derek found himself sitting in Nathan's office, being forced to watch every video Jasmine had documented. Every insult, every ignored customer, every cruel smirk. Nathan stood by the window, arms crossed. You didn't attack my wife because she was poor, he said, his voice steady and lethal. You attacked her because of who she was, and now you'll finally understand that actions have consequences. When Derek left that office, he knew it was over. No restaurant would ever hire him. The lawsuit would leave him in debt for decades. His reputation, gone. His family, silent. His face, infamous. From the window, Jasmine watched him disappear into the crowd, her hand resting on her belly as her unborn daughter kicked softly. Our daughter will grow up knowing that dignity isn't optional, she said. Nathan placed a gentle arm around her shoulders. And that respect is earned, not demanded. But Derek's story wasn't done yet. 6 months later, he was waiting tables at a dusty roadside diner 50 miles outside the city. Minimum wage, no tips, no friends, no protection. The $2.3 million lawsuit had been settled for $380,000, still more than he could ever afford. He shared a cramped apartment with two strangers and spent his nights scrolling through news articles that still featured his name under the headline, "The Waiter Who Lost Everything." His case was now used in diversity training. His photo appeared in corporate seminars titled, "When Arrogance Destroys Careers." Even universities discussed him in ethics lectures. One night, his former coworker Tyler messaged him, "Dude, professors are literally using you as a case study on what not to do. You've officially become a cautionary tale." But the moment that truly broke Derek came 3 months after losing his job. He was working deliveries to cover his legal bills when an address appeared on his screen. A beautiful home in the suburbs. He walked to the door, food bag trembling in his hands. It opened. Jasmine stood there, holding a newborn baby. Derek froze. His voice cracked. "Your delivery." She took the bag gently, then looked him straight in the eyes. "My daughter was born 3 weeks ago," Jasmine said softly. "Her name is Isabella. She's healthy, loved, safe." She paused, her tone calm but unshakable. "Despite everything you put me through, do you know what I'll teach her? That dignity has no price, that respect is non-negotiable, and that people who judge others by the color of their skin always pay for it in the end." She closed the door gently, leaving Derek standing there in silence, face to face with the weight of his own actions. From inside, Nathan watched through the window. "Do you think he learned his lesson?" he asked quietly. "I don't know," Jasmine replied, rocking little Isabella in her arms. "But our daughter will grow up knowing that justice exists, that we never bow our heads, and that respect must always be defended." Months later, Riverside Restaurant was under new ownership. Starlight Hotels, Jasmine's company. The building had been renovated, the staff retrained, and diversity programs became a permanent part of the company culture. Amanda was promoted to general manager. The customers Derek had once humiliated filed their own lawsuits, and won. As for Derek, he was still trying to rebuild, but he quickly learned that a destroyed reputation is not easily repaired. His name brought only shame. Friends had vanished, his family avoided him. The lesson was brutal, but clear. When you judge someone by their appearance, when you humiliate others for your own ego, when you think you're untouchable, you eventually learn the world is much smaller than you think. And consequences, they don't care about your last name or your connections. Jasmine never needed violence to win. She won with something stronger, documented truth, unwavering integrity, and the courage to say, enough. That night, as she rocked Isabella to sleep, she whispered, "You'll grow up knowing your parents never looked away. That dignity must always be protected." Nathan kissed her forehead. "The best revenge," he said softly, "isn't to make them suffer. It's to build something so good that they realize what they lost by choosing hate." If this story touched you, if you've ever faced injustice or seen it happen, subscribe to the channel and share this story. Because every time someone like Jasmine stands up, the world becomes a little more fair, and those who underestimate others always learn the hard way.